welcome to the Press On podcast. I am so glad you're here. If this is your first time, my name is Justin, and again, I am so glad you are here. You are joining us on an awesome week. But before we get in to our weekly word of encouragement, I want to give you some pretty exciting news. When I started this podcast back in June, I really wanted this message of pressing on to be so much more than a podcast because I don't really have anything good to say. That's why we take everything from Scripture. But I wanted this message of pressing on to be so much more than my words, but this movement of hope, this movement of perseverance. I think it's more than a podcast. I think it's a lifestyle. This motto that people can live by, that no matter what life looks like, you can press on. And it's a message that stretches far beyond Christianity and religion. Our world is at an all-time high of anxiety, depression, and suicide rates. And we desperately need this message that you can press on. So whether you've made mistakes in your past, you can press on. Whether life looks really terrible for you right now, you can press on. Or maybe life is great for you right now, and you're just waiting for the next big thing. You can press on. It's a universal message. And so with that being said, I'm excited because next Friday, January 21st, we are launching the next phase of Press On, and that is a clothing brand. You look all around you and you'll see companies and places like churches using clothing to advertise their product or their place of business. And I think clothing is a great canvas for a message of hope. We're not advertising something. We don't want people to come to a certain place or buy a certain thing, but we just want to get this message of perseverance out into the world. And so next Friday, we are launching our first t-shirt design. And if that goes well, hopefully in the spring, we can launch 3 more designs for our big grand opening. This will be our soft opening. And so if you're a listener or a watcher of our podcast each and every week, I want to encourage you to check out that next Friday. Next week, I'll have more details and maybe a special gift for our listeners as well. But that is just something I'm super excited about. All right, so if you are just joining us, we are diving in, no pun intended, into the book of Jonah. Last week, we started by looking at how there's a lot about Jonah that we can find in ourselves. A lot of similarities, how God might call us to do something difficult or something we don't really want to do, and we tend to want to run in the opposite direction. But God is always going to use things in our lives to bring us back into His will, the things that He has called for us to do. And so we ended last week at the end of chapter 1. Jonah got thrown off the ship he was on, and then God provided this fish to swallow Jonah, and that's where we left Jonah. And usually I have a book of notes that I write down here, but this week, as I was reading chapter 2, there's 2 things that really stuck out to me, but I really wanted to read the whole chapter to you because it literally is just a prayer. Jonah's in the belly of this giant fish, and this is what we read in chapter 2. From the inside of the fish, Jonah prayed to the Lord his God. He said this, "In my distress I called to the Lord, and He answered me. From deep in the realm of the dead I called for help, and You listened to my cry. You hurled me into the pits, into the very heart of the seas, and the currents swirled about me. All of Your waves and breakers, they swept over me. I said, I have been banished from Your sight, yet I will look again towards Your holy temple. The engulfing waters threatened me. The deep surrounded me. Seaweed had wrapped around my head. To the roots of the mountains I sank down. The earth beneath barred me forever. But You, Lord my God, brought my life up from the pit. When my life was ebbing away, I remembered You, Lord, and my prayer rose to You, to Your holy temple. Those who cling to worthless idols turn away from God's love for them. But I, with shouts of grateful praise, will sacrifice to You. What I have vowed, I will make good. I will say salvation comes from the Lord." And then the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah onto dry land. Nice way to end the chapter, with vomit. But I love this prayer of Jonah. So many times in my life, and maybe in your life, you have felt this way, that when we were in the midst of what seems like death, the end, God has found a way to rescue us, and our lives should be a reflection of that. Our life's prayer should be a prayer of thankfulness for what God has done for us. Now, two things, like I said, that I gleaned from this as I was reading, especially just for my life, and personally. Number one is I love that Jonah goes to prayer in this time. He's in the middle of this fish, and what does he decide to do? He decides to pray. And though everything does not look good around him right now, he probably doesn't know what's going to happen next. He is still thankful for God, and thankful to God, and just expressing his gratitude that no matter what life looks like, I just want to thank you for bringing me to this place. And so my question is no matter what life looks like for you right now, are you still thankful? It is really hard to be thankful during the hard times. But those hard times, what does Paul say? Those hard times produces perseverance, and perseverance produces faith. Maybe something like that. I can't remember exactly. But the idea is that we grow from the hard times. We grow from the struggle. I mean, think about a butterfly. A caterpillar spins the cocoon, and then a butterfly emerges. And oftentimes we look at that butterfly and we are amazed by the beauty. But how many times do we thank God, not for the beauty of the butterfly, but for the cocoon? Nobody likes the cocoon. It's an ugly process. It's an ugly thing. And from that cocoon comes struggle, but then the butterfly emerges from the struggle. And so are you thanking God for the cocoons in your life, to put it kind of cheesy, but that's just what I'm thinking about. But the other thing I think about Jonah, not only does he go to God in prayer, unfortunately, he goes to God in prayer kind of late. Like, what if Jonah would have gone to God in prayer when God first called Jonah to go to Nineveh? And what if Jonah was more open to what God was doing? A lot of times I think we make prayer our last resort. We tend to try to do things on our own, and then when it's not working, then we go to God in prayer. Now, it really does work out for Jonah in the end, but man, could he saved himself a lot of heartache and struggle if he would have just trusted in God and gone to God in prayer in the first place. And that's something I need to do in my life, is that no matter what life looks like, when there's ups and downs and these ebbs and flows of life, I need to turn to God first, not make him my last resort. Man, as we're reading the book of Jonah, I keep seeing him pressing on, not always in the right direction, but he just keeps moving. And with this prayer, I get the feeling, and some of us already know the end of the story, but you just get the feeling that he's not giving up. He's putting his hope and his faith in God, even in this crazy circumstance. And so I hope you can do the same thing. Each and every week, we want to encourage everybody we come in contact, whether it's through a podcast or a clothing brand. We want to encourage you to do one thing, and that is to press on. I can't wait to see you next week. We're going to look at chapter 3, and don't forget some exciting details and a gift for our podcast listeners for our clothing brand launch next week. I'm excited. It's going to be a great week. Until then, adios.